Hey everybody, welcome back. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about succession. It's a little cold outside right now, but we're going to make it through this together, all right? So what I want you to look at is this grassy field behind me. This is recently disturbed area that didn't have a lot of grass on it at one particular time. It was full of life and full of trees, but it was disturbed, and it was disturbed by humans. All the trees were removed from this area, and over time you see the grass started to grow again. Even though the soil, there was just nothing but dirt here at one point in time, you can see that the grass is starting to grow again. Over a period of time, you're going to start to see small trees and shrubs, and eventually larger trees if it continues undisturbed. So it's important to understand that succession is slow, it's orderly, it's predictable, and it takes place over a long period of time. So over time, if this isn't disturbed, then you're going to start seeing more trees and shrubs in a larger area. Eventually, if it continues undisturbed, you're going to see what's called a climax community, and that is the pinnacle, that is the end of succession. It's all about science, it's all about succession and the rest of this. It's exciting, it's science. We know in fact that this is one place where succession won't take place. The turf isn't real here, but if it were, you'd start to see small brushes or small bushes and shrubs and things start to grow, and then eventually really big tall trees over time would start to grow in this particular area. So if it weren't artificial and it weren't cut all the time, you'd start to see some big trees on the football field, and that's probably not too good for the football team if you ask me.
Boy, it's hard being in these small, cramped spaces. Well, anyways, let's take a look at succession and understand what it means to undergo succession. And the best one that I could find to discuss would be a day at the beach. So let's take a look at that. So let's take a look at the beach. And the beach is an excellent example of succession because we start off with sand. The first thing we look at is the beach, and we see that there's nothing there before. So this is an example of primary succession. And then over time, small grasses, marram grass, starts to grow out of the sand, and that is the pioneer species. That is the first species that's present during succession. And then eventually we start to get small trees and shrubs starting to grow, and over time larger trees grow until we reach a climax community some 50 to 100 years after primary succession begins. Alright, so let's take a look at some pictures of that. Primary succession starts off on a beach dune with some small grasses. As you can see in the picture, there are some small grasses there on the left, and that is known as marram grass. That is the pioneer species of the sand dune. That is the first species to grow there. Over time, the pioneer species continues to grow and starts to develop soil within the sand that helps larger organisms such as cottonwood trees be able to develop. These trees then continue to develop over time as more stable soil occurs. Grasses eventually give way to larger forests. So you see in this picture that there's much more grass, many more trees, and you don't see quite as much sand as you used to because succession is taking place. More organisms and larger organisms are moving into the area. Eventually, we see larger shrubs, larger trees, and very little sand within the dune, eventually giving way to a large forest. So you see how we can start off with sand and over many, many years eventually develop into a large, stable climax community. Again, that's just simply the day at the beach, and that's kind of what we've been looking at over the past couple days, is succession. And by looking at the beach, we can understand how succession takes place. So hopefully you understand a little bit about the natural areas of succession and how succession occurs. Again, we start off with pioneer species, which is the first species to be there, and eventually more and more species grow, take their place, and eventually we end up with a large climax community. Hopefully this helps.